I always feel a sense of pride when we get together. You know, all of us kind of attend these town halls for different reasons. You know, I would say that first and foremost, we have the town halls for the relatively new people, because we want to kind of get you into Balboa Nation and kind of understand who we are, what our culture is, and what we're here to do. But then at the same time, I can really appreciate the efforts of our operations team. You know, they're unselfish. I haven't met a more humble team. They put in a very hard work ethic, and at the same time, they're not the ones that a lot of times are getting the awards. But I've never worked, you know, and as long as I've worked in this industry, I haven't really seen a marriage or a partnership that I've seen with the operations team at Balboa and our sales team. So the operations team, you're kind of like our unsung heroes, and we could never, ever do it without you. We're very thankful for that. You know, to bring this kind of for a close, and what maybe we can take away from this morning is we recently, at the end of every month, we have a vendor leadership meeting. Rob's in it, David Sexton's in it, all of our sales leaders, all of our team leaders are in it. And the one thing that we surmised at the end was that we weren't operating at 110% efficiency. That even though we had been much more successful than we've ever been, we knew our business, and we knew that the true potential that this business has. You know, and so that's kind of what brings us to this theme of taking that next step, being one step closer and extending or reaching ourselves. You know, many times, right, you can read a motivational book, you can hear me talk, we're talking about the next level, and we're talking about rising up and stepping up your game and taking it one notch higher and moving to the next gear and firing on all 8 cylinders, breaking through the glass ceiling. But you know, when it really comes down to it, right, whatever I say this morning, that's not going to be what fuels your individual success. I'd like to think it did. But when it really comes down to whether you're in operations or sales, it's up to you. You know, a long, long time ago, a gentleman by the name of J. Paul Getty said, "Rise early, work hard, strike oil." It really applies to all of us. You know, when I think about operations, I think front and center, the losses are too low, right, sales guys? The losses are too low. We need to reach further. We need to reach further with respect to that share of the business. We need to make it easier to underwrite the organic vendors. We know that. We've talked about that, right? That's in front of us. When it comes to CV, as Rob said, we need to kind of somehow simplify the titling process. We need to make sure, we need to ensure that the CV dealer experience is seamless. We're all in this together. The other thing, too, is when we talk about Kerry Lombardi, we talk about franchise, and we talk about healthcare, and we talk about office products, we've got to shore up this sales support. I think Sydney's done an amazing job. We need to emulate that. We need to duplicate that. We need to figure out how, right? Because they are the conduit of how information moves back and forth between us and the dealer to ensure that the dealers go, "Oh my gosh, Balboa is way better than our competitors. I'm going to send them more deals." And then Lastly, from an operations standpoint, Rob mentioned the e-signature. Not that many companies do it. Not that many companies do it. Auto decisioning. That means that many of the transactions or applications that we underwrite, the dealer or the vendor or the manufacturer is going to receive instantaneous decisions. Now, what that does is not only kind of make us look good, but it also frees it up from an efficiency standpoint to put more elbow grease on the deals that are tougher, right? So there's efficiencies internally, but advantages externally. So I have full confidence from an operations standpoint. You guys have done it before. You have rallied and rose up as it relates to the Well Initiative. And I can't even imagine that this is a continuance exercise of continuing to reach and bring it home even more so. But you know what? It doesn't sit with operations. You know, frankly, most of us on the floor here are salespeople and sales leaders. It sits with us. As it relates to the fourth quarter promo, who likes that? We got money for everybody, right? Who likes that? Yeah, it's good, right? It's good. But it's a fourth quarter endeavor, right? It's a fourth quarter endeavor. As it relates to, like Patrick was saying, whether you're in field sales, that means if I say that we do 8 field sales calls, why would you do 8? Right? That's the minimum. If we say that if you're at your workstation here in the office, we say it's 100 calls. My question to you is, why would it be, I'm looking around the speaker, yeah, why would it be 100? If that is the minimum required. I got a story for you. You know, I became a sales leader in the equipment finance business in 1990. Jared Takeuchi said, man, you've been out of the deal for that long? But you know, when I was first promoted as a field sales leader, my boss told me at the time, the guy that promoted me, he says, you're a coach, you're a teacher, and you need to be a trainer. What he was saying behind the scenes, and this is for our sales leaders, is that we don't need you to go fight a credit deal. We don't need you to figure out what documentation or what missing document or talk to the dealer about getting that addendum signed. You know what happens, right? It's a daisy chain. The rep goes, Carla, Lila, look at this. Then Lila goes to Carla, says, look at this. Then Carla goes to Patrick and said, can you believe it? Look at this. And then Patrick goes, I can't believe it. I'm going to talk to Brian. So Brian goes, okay, Patrick, I get it. What do you want to talk about? He goes, you know, I have absolutely no idea. Because that transfer of information keeps going. I got to tell you, when I was in the field, and I had a boss, he was in Dallas, he never traveled, right? I called Bobby and I said, can you believe I am outraged? And I tell him about this deal and why we didn't underwrite it, why we didn't approve it, why we didn't fund it. And I'd wait, go 2-3 days, and then I'd say, Bobby, what did operations say? What did credit say? He goes, oh, you know what? I forgot to call him. The person, the ambassador, the person that is responsible more for your success is you. If I were you, if I were making the 100 calls or the 8 field visits or more, nobody would get in the way of my success. And I encourage not only for sales leaders, right? Sales leaders, like Patrick said, to get to the front, get on the phone with you and help close more vendors, go see more vendors, but also for each of you individual performers, I take full accountability for that approval, that funded deal. It's you, it's up to you, right? Now, the 80-20 rule. Who has heard of that? Everybody, right? So let me put it a certain way. 80% of the business comes from 20% of the salespeople. 80% of the business comes from 20% of the vendors. So if that's the case, if you were expending, as an individual performer, if you were expending the same amount of diligence, the same amount of effort as 80% of the sales force, why would you ever think that you would be in the top 20%? Right? You would expect to be in the bottom 80 if you do the minimum. Whether you're a field salesperson, whether you're inside, if somebody says, this is a standard, if you always come up short, why wouldn't you be in the bottom 80%? That is probably the biggest message that I have for you. Not because I want to make you feel bad. We want you to be successful. We want you to be more successful than you've ever been, than you've ever thought you could be. But then it comes down to a personal decision, right? So now jumping back to a company perspective, because we just finished from a sales leader standpoint, from an individual performer standpoint, from an operations standpoint, is that in operations we need to reach. We totally agree with that. From a sales leader standpoint, man, they need to be at the front. They need to help you close new dealers. From a salesperson, I totally agree. Wouldn't you all agree that you don't want to be in the bottom 80%? You want to be in the top 20%. So you need to reach. Reach further than you have before. You know, the great thing about it is that Balboa will win if you reach. So I don't really have to mention the company. It's all about the sum of the parts. You know, I'm going to finish with just one quote. And who's my favorite quoter? It's Vince Lombardi, of course. The difference, wait for it, the difference between a successful salesperson and others is not a lack of strength. It's not a lack of knowledge. It's the ability to reach. No, I'm just kidding. The difference between a successful salesperson and others is not a lack of strength. It's not a lack of knowledge, but rather a lack of will. But rather a lack of individual will. I want to congratulate all of you on an amazing, amazingly successful third quarter. And I wish you a very strong and record-breaking fourth and all of 2014. Thank you very much.